Talent is everywhere, but it's seldom recognized. So how does a good headhunter go into practice?
There are a lot of people operating in that market, but those who actually really knew the industry, that knew their client, that understood the needs of the candidate were actually not that many. When we look at coaching and we look at training, our immediate thoughts is even the senior people requires a lot of coaching and learning and development.
How do C-levels get into job hopping? What do the headhunters do to help them?
What was the main consideration at that time?
Pay.
Really?
I definitely spoke to some very close confidants of myself, people I used to work with, and most people said to me, "You're crazy."
The market is rapidly changing. Can today's high-end talent be simply defined?
Recently, we've seen a lot of bankers or technologists or IT people in banking move into fintech and technology companies. But vice versa, at the same time, these large traditional organizations have a lot of capital, they still have a big client base, and they still have a particular position in the market. So it's very important for them to continue to expand and to innovate and to grow.
Today on Minds Millionaires, we talk to David Chan, CEO of伯乐Associates, to learn more about the theory of talent. 财智对话由东航云锦东方冠名播出。According to the Chinese Business Leadership Insight report, in recent years, Chinese executives have frequently switched jobs. Internet, public relations, and luxury goods are the three biggest job hopping areas. Over 40% of leaders have changed companies in the past 5 years, more than half of which are cross-border job hopping. For example, the continuous turnover of Le TV was used to be big news. China's businesses are undergoing salary, benefits, and other areas.
Chinese company is getting more and more, let's say, internationalized. And also some of the MNC, they're trying to be localized. So that makes some of the turnover rate of the staff is getting higher and higher. So how do you think about this phenomenon?
The attraction, I guess, for the candidate is that the Chinese organization or private enterprises have a lot of investment available to them, and they're all about growth. So that's an attraction, I think, to many multinational executives. However, I think culturally, a lot of Chinese firms, while they're looking to internationalize, are still running very much a Chinese business model. Whereas compared to a lot of multinationals who've been operating globally in this region for quite some time, they have a much more mature, much more established business model where executives comes in, they basically know what they're looking for. Whereas in a Chinese firm, very driven by the strategy of the owner, maybe strategy of some of the key people rather than necessarily the strategy of the organization. So I think that's one of the challenges for international executives working for local Chinese firms. But no doubt we are seeing a lot more of that happening in the marketplace today.
What do you think the main concerns or main considerations for those senior level or C-level candidates think?
The Chinese market is the biggest growth market globally. So most, especially a lot of returnees, Chinese nationals who study abroad or work abroad wanting to return, they see the opportunity in Chinese organizations as very lucrative and very much an opportunity to grow with the organization. But I think cultural fit is probably the biggest concern for most of the executives. How do they come from a very much an international background into a local organization remains, I think, one of the biggest challenges for the organization itself and also for the executives who are wanting to bring that skill set into a Chinese enterprise.
But apart from that, whether you think about a lot about the salaries, about the locations, do they have like different categories to think about?
The package certainly is one of the key criteria, especially at the senior level. Most of them will have families. So in terms of the salary packaging or the compensation package, as well as the location in terms for the family, for the children, all are a key consideration when they decide whether to take up a particular role within an organization. What we see, especially with a lot of Chinese organizations, their compensation package is a little bit different, the way it's actually structured. Probably a lot more linked to performance, potentially a lot more linked to equity. So that would be an attraction.
Would it be longer to approach a C-level candidates?
When you get to the C-level, generally you're at the decision-making level. So whatever role that you move, it's got to be significantly attractive enough, right? And to some degree, the risk of moving is actually very, very high. Of course, a lot of our candidates are not candidates that we just spoken for the first time when we are working on this particular mandate or this assignment. A lot of the candidates, we have relationships over a long period of time. That could be, at the C level, with a lot of our candidates, could it be, previous candidates that we placed into this organization many years ago. They could be clients that we worked with previously. It could be relationships that we formed through other association. So it varies from time to time. So if it's somebody that we know very well, I think that process will tend to be quicker. But if someone that we don't know, we have to establish that relationship. And at a C level, sometimes that can take up to a year.
In terms of C-level job hopping, David Chen certainly has a lot to say. He had over 20 years of experience in group business and banking before joining伯乐Associates. He has worked as a senior executive in several international banks, including JP Morgan Chase & Co., the National Australian Bank Limited, and ANZ Bank, among others. His choice to become a headhunter was a surprise to many people. He went from dealing with money to dealing with people. But was this the only change brought about by this transition?
At that time, did伯乐hunt you or you hunted伯乐?
I guess in the 2015, during quite a transformation year for a lot of the banking industry because of a lot of regulation, capital reforms. As a result, the bank I was working with at that particular time, there was a bit of restructuring, and I decided, well, it's time for me to explore something a little bit different. I was actually in Shanghai working for the bank in 2011, 2012. At that particular time, I was actually a candidate of伯乐. I wasn't aware at that time, the size and strength of伯乐, but subsequently I moved back to Hong Kong, so I didn't take up the offer that伯乐gave me for a role not with伯乐but with one of the clients. And over this period of time, I actually remained in contact with some of the key people in伯乐. And when the opportunity came, it was a relatively easy decision.
How long did you take to make that decision?
From the beginning of the conversation, it took me about a month. Yeah.
Wow, that was quick.
I like to do things quickly.
What was the main consideration at that time?
Pay.
Really?
Look, certainly coming from the financial services industry, it's generally speaking a quite lucratively paid industry. In the headhunting industry, obviously a lot of it comes from performance, comes from a different style of in terms of compensation package. I definitely spoke to some very close confidants of myself, people I used to work with in the financial services market, as well as my family, and most people said to me, "You're crazy." No, not really. I think definitely a lot of my colleagues who were from the financial services industry saw that I possess a particular skill set that was, I think, very useful in the headhunting business, which is people skills. Right, in terms of building network, but as well as bringing some industry knowledge into headhunting. So it's not just about knowing people, but it's about knowing the industry itself. So most of my friends and colleagues were very supportive. Of course, then I had to convince my wife that this is the right move for me.
Did she agree?
She's very open. She knows that, generally speaking, I would make the right decision in terms of the longer term, because this wasn't for me a short-term decision. It's a career change, right? A career shift. So the decision to join particularly this industry or the right platform or the right company was critical in that decision. So it wasn't just about being a headhunter, but who were you actually working with and what were you actually going to be doing?
You were already very senior in your position when you were recruited. What did you think of headhunting company at that time?
I always say, if you look at this industry probably 20 years ago, 10 years ago, headhunting would be a type of analogy for this business, because you are really looking at the market, who you could actually target to recruit for your client. But today, I think the industry has transformed and our clients are looking for much more than headhunting or purely recruiting. They're actually looking for people who can consult, who can advise, and who can actually understand their business and their industry. So
what's your definition about伯乐?
Instead
of just saying it's headhunting company.
Yeah. No, I think伯乐is unique in the market. It's in the sense that our history or our legacy has been very much an executive search company. So we're dealing with recruitment at the very senior level, at the C level, at the regional and at the global level. So quite often what we do, we actually consult. As an example, yesterday I went to see some client in Beijing and searching for a very senior C-level position. And frankly, we didn't talk too much about the headhunting or the recruitment engagement process. It was about understanding what they were looking for and then giving my understanding and my advice around the type of people they need, given the business environment that they were operating in. So we're really like a consultant and an advisor.
So they don't give you the specific description of the job. They just tell you what they want.
Especially at the very senior level, they don't tend to give you a job description, because a lot of it is around fitting into the culture, fitting into some specific requirement of the business itself. And when you talk to the very senior level, whether it's the owners of the business or where you're talking to the CEO of the business, they are looking to you or looking to us to provide some background in terms of the type of things that they are looking for, the type of profile that they are looking for, rather than trying to fit a particular JD.
Nowadays, traditional industries face impact and challenges of new industries. People who are familiar with the industry and have a deep understanding of the background of their businesses are in large demand. Established in China in 1996, the industry and talent that伯乐Associates focuses on has also changed in recent years.
The key industry sectors that we operate are, I would say, the typical industry that operates within the economy. Financial services, which is one of the big sector in our business. Industrial, which includes the manufacturing, supply chain, chemical, which is one of the core industries of China. Consumer, which includes fast-moving consumer goods, retail, hospitality. We have also technology, media, as well as healthcare. So they're the sort of the core industries that we currently operate.
So why do you think there is a lot of mobility happening between the traditional and the innovative industry?
Recently, we've seen a lot of bankers or technologists or IT people in banking move into fintech and technology companies. But vice versa, at the same time, these large traditional organizations have a lot of capital. They still have a big client base, and they still have a particular position in the market. So it's very important for them to continue to expand and to innovate and to grow. And that's why I think you've seen a lot of mobility across both industries. Not purely a one-way people moving out of traditional into the new, but it's actually some of the new moving into traditional to help them transform. Yeah. We recently worked with some banks who are operating in looking at digital and looking at how to actually create their business model that is somewhat similar to the technology people. So we were able to help them attract some talent from the technology startups. And having said that, this talent have come initially from that financial services banking industry, but decided to spend the last couple of years working in the fintech space, but felt like, okay, because of capital, because of competition, decided that, okay, it's better for them to move back into a larger platform. So we actually help this bank actually recruit a technologist back into the bank to be the head of digital. Mm-hmm. Okay. On the flip side, we have actually done a lot of work with the internet startups to recruit CTOs, okay, who have actually come from banks. These are people that who have actually run an IT department, who have a very established team. Okay, now actually we have actually helped them recruit into a startup, and because they're growing rapidly, to become their chief technology officer.
传统企业的话呢，我觉得还是在系统化方面做得非常的好。那新兴行业的话呢，他们对 C-level 的这个候选人的要求，我觉得更偏向于说非常准确的这个市场把握的敏锐度。另外的话，还要非常强的这种学习能力和洞察能力，以及说。大部分的企业都会希望说，这个 C-level 候选人本身有一定的狼性，能够快速的发展企业和建立团队。
之前10几年之前，可能说，这个薪资能够给你涨一些，涨个30%、40%或者50%，他就跳槽了。但现在这个不是一个最大的重点了，最大的重点，我觉得更多的会是在说，这个公司它的前景是怎么样。它的文化是不是和我有匹配？之前可能很多中国候选人想去国外得个这种培训的机会，但现在更多的这个候选人是想从国外回到中国，因为中国现在发展的非常快。我在中国，我就是 global。
Because the market is changing so fast, so what if when you find the right candidates for your clients, but it's actually the candidate's needs is changed?
Yeah. If you look at what's happened with the likes of Alibaba, Alipay, WeChat Pay, they are actually functioning on services that traditionally the banks and financial services organizations have occupied. So if you look at the market today looking for talents to fit into that financial and technology space, typically, there are not that many people that would fit both of them. So in that sense, there is not necessarily a very big pool of talent that is available to us. So quite often, when I talk to the clients and I talk to the candidates, I look at, what's the potential best fit? Because if you want looking for the perfect fit and everybody is looking for that perfect fit, there is just not enough of that going around. So we tend to coach candidates, and sometimes when I talk to candidates, and most candidates will tend to have very high expectations about where they want to go, what kind of package they want. But do they really have the capacity to do that job is another question. So what we tend to do when we assess them is to tell them, look, there's opportunity for you in this space, but you might be lacking in something, or you may decide that, okay, this is not so suitable for me. Why is it? Is it because you're missing some particular discipline in terms of that skill set that you need to improve? So we work very closely with the candidates. And so when you say changing their mind, what's the motivation for changing their mind? Is it they don't want to join this company, or they don't want to take on that role? And that's why we spend so much time with our candidates. What is in hot demand now are definitely the high-tech roles, the AI, artificial intelligence role, where the talent pool in China specifically is somewhat limited. If you look at the data, the bulk of AI specialists are actually based in Silicon Valley, right? So how do we tap into that market?
What is the solution when you face this kind of situation?
I think this is a challenge for not only for us, but for our clients. Do we develop more talent locally here, or do we attract clients from internationally?
Talent mapping has always been a core function of your business. So what kind of talent is most attractive nowadays?
The technology space is driving a lot of the hiring, and that includes, if you look at some buzzwords in the market, like AI, artificial intelligence, whether it's data scientists, things like blockchain, which is an emerging type of industry within financial services. These are definitely what I would say difficult markets for our clients to fill. If you look at the traditional roles, there is a very mature database across the whole market, including ours, including our competitors, and including our clients' database. So I think what is in hot demand now are definitely the high-tech roles, the AI, artificial intelligence role, where the talent pool in China specifically is somewhat limited. If you look at the data, the bulk of the AI specialists are actually based in Silicon Valley. Right. So how do we tap into that market?
What is the solution when you face this kind of situation?
I think this is a challenge for not only for us, but for our clients. Do we develop more talent locally here, or do we attract clients from internationally? For example, with one of the large global universities in the US running one of the big MBA programs, they have their career development officers who are operating within those faculties within the university. And these are the representing the students who are graduating from their MBA program, from their master's programs, and providing opportunities for these people. What we're doing with them is saying, hey, look, this is the demand of the market, what our clients are looking for in terms of talent. Okay, as an education institution, they also have a lot of students who are, believe it or not, Chinese nationals, or who are or overseas students who are actually studying abroad and may have worked for a number of years. So now we're collaborating. We're doing some. We're going to organize some workshops here in China with the university in terms of some of the students who are returning to China to explore some of the opportunities in the market and potentially matching them with some of our potential employers. I think it's part of the process that we are trying to do, at least to start engaging at the source. Mm-hmm. And the source is really coming out of these universities, not necessarily coming out of industry, because there's just not enough people from the industry.
With the need of many enterprises to accelerate global layout, the high-end headhunting companies are also going global. Taking伯乐Associates as an example, it has wholly owned offices in 13 cities in Asia. In addition to the big cities in China, it has branches in Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and Bangkok, among others. Its parent company, Recruit Group, has more than 45 offices in 26 cities and has over 45,000 employees and operates. What does globalization mean to the high-end headhunting companies in addition to a bigger talent pool?
Subsidiary of RGF. So how does伯乐work?
One of the benefits of being part of the Recruit Group is that our sister companies, if you like, in Japan, our sister companies in Southeast Asia, our sister companies in India, we have a lot of collaboration in terms of their client base who are looking to expand in Greater China, or alternatively, my Chinese clients who are looking to expand into that part of the world, whether it's Southeast Asia, Japan, or India. And we see definitely, basically every month, I will have a meeting with my peers who run the Japan business, who runs the Southeast Asia business, and who run the Indian business. And we look at client opportunities who are looking to expand within our region, and how do we actually leverage off one another. So, in fact, I was, as an example, I was in Beijing yesterday talking to the CEO of a very large technology company. Which was referred from Singapore, and they have a big expansion plans here in China, both in Beijing and Shanghai. So we are able, through that network, number one, we have a very well established relationship already. They know about Recruit, and they know of the reputation of伯乐. So when we met, it was a very simple engagement. We were able to quickly understand their business, and they were very quickly able to understand us. Likewise, I am working with some of my clients in China who are expanding aggressively, especially in Southeast Asia. If you look at the segments that I mentioned before, whether in industrial or consumer space, Southeast Asia across the network in terms of like Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, is a growing market, and that all fits into the One Belt One Road initiative of China. So we are referring a lot of that business across our network because our clients are asking us, can you help us there?
You have 9 offices in 10 different cities in China, and half of them were actually located in second-tier cities. How do you convince those talent move from first-tier city to the second-tier cities?
Having mentioned about the location, I think no doubt the key markets in mainland China is still Shanghai and Beijing. Shanghai certainly is a very much an international market covering most of the industries. But I think when you look at location, a lot of it will also depend on the industry the candidate is actually operating in. Recently, I helped place for a European financial services organization that have significant businesses in Europe, Africa, and in China. And the bulk of their business in China is in T2, T3 cities. They don't have any offices in Tier 1 cities. And they were looking for a CEO. When I engaged with the chairman of the organization, who is a European, and English was not his first language, to attract a CEO to join that organization in the T2 city was extremely challenging. The city is actually Chengdu. Okay, so ultimately, when I sourced the candidates, ultimately coming from the major cities, Beijing and Shanghai, and possibly even from Hong Kong, really to find someone that can fit the profile of the role, that can fit the culture of the organization that they're going to be joining, and thirdly, willing to relocate from Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong to Chengdu.
That's challenging.
They're very triple challenge, right? So I call it triple challenge. But I think, again, ultimately, when I understood the client, what they were doing, and essentially they were the number 1 player in that particular part of the market in Europe, in Africa. In China, they were probably positioned about number 3 with a objective of being number 1, number 2 within the next 2 or 3 years. So for then, when I went to source the candidate that had that relevant experience, they knew of this firm, right? To be honest, in the end, we were able to place the candidate actually coming out of Shanghai, mainly because they see that as, firstly, it's an opportunity that doesn't come around very often, number 1. Number 2, they will not be there forever. This was a step in terms of a bigger opportunity in a global organization. Now, if it was a dead end role where they're basically going to be there forever, then most likely we would need to find a local candidate. So I think for these kind of challenging cases to move from Tier 1 to T2, people must see what their future looks like. And if the future is bright and this is a stepping stone, most people are willing to take on that responsibility.
With the rapid development of technology and economy, talent flows more and more globally. How can we efficiently search and match most suitable talent for enterprises? Has become the biggest challenge faced by many high-end headhunting companies.伯乐Associates has a massive high-ranking talent database, over 1,030,000. Its senior consultants have served for over 10 years. Even so, in the aspect of consulting training, it also has to have its own uniqueness to be more competitive.
How many consultants are there in your company?
We have over around 250 consultants in across our network. I think the quality of the industry, the consultants in the industry, varies quite a lot, from the very inexperienced to the very, very experienced recruiters. And ultimately, the very, very experienced recruiters are not that many. There are a lot of people operating in that market, but those who actually really knew the industry, that knew their client, that understood the needs of the candidate were actually not that many. As a leader in this industry, we need to continue to, I think, to develop and coach our people. In my case, definitely I need to coach my consultants within Berle, but as a representative, a senior representative of the industry, I feel me and other leaders in the industry need to also to set the right standards in terms of what a good consultant should be.
So how would you like to coach them to be competitive in the industry?
So, for example, if I look at industry, industry practice, most people will say, oh, well, it's manufacturing, it's supply chain, it's chemical. To me, that is too generic. And if I look at the key trend in that market is Industry 4.0. And what does that mean? Is robotics, about automation. How does my consultant who has never been exposed to that really get to know that? So what we're trying to do now, we're organizing, is that we're going to do some very specific training on Industry 4.0. We will invite some knowledge leaders from the market. Some will come from our clients. Some will come from the associations in the market in order to provide that kind of coaching and training to our leaders. So when we go out and talk to our clients, we are talking very intelligently about the things that are actually important to them. We will find in this industry quite a lot of young consultants are recruited and essentially sent out and meet clients and generate business by their own effort. And there's very much what we call KPI driven. You meet, how many clients do you meet? How many candidates do you meet? How much revenue you generate? You can get some good results, but those results tend not to be so sustainable. In my particular case, most of myself, when I go and see clients, or my senior consultants who go and see clients, will bring along our researchers to meet with the client. Now, whilst they are not particularly participating in that meeting in terms of contribution, what they're doing is they're learning a lot in terms of how we're actually engaging. What that means is that the process to develop that person is a lot longer. And in which case, your return on investment, in terms of the delivery of and the growth of that individual will take a little bit of longer time. But in the longer term, that person who's been meeting with our executives go about. It's not about classroom training, it's about really on-the-job training.
其实我刚加入进来呢，是一个 researcher 的一个身份。然后 researcher 的主要工作呢，其实很简单，就是说目标也很明确，我们就是要帮我们的顾问找到人，找到 candidate， 找到合适的 candidate。我当时是经历了大概1个半月的一个培训，从最基础的 cold call skill 到 briefing。到后期的这个 on job training， 就是有 mentor 啊，我们有 mentor 这样1对1的带我们，然后给我们一些 case， 让我们跟着一起去完成。
那一开始的时候去聊候选人，如果说他的确是资历比较深的那一类，会觉得说可能跟他去打开一个话题是比较难的。而且其实自己如果说对于行业这一块一个积累不够的话呢，你也会明显的察觉到，可能候选人本人他就不太愿意去跟你去沟通更多的这种岗位上面的一些信息。但其实你需要不断的去积累你提问的一些方式，然后不断的去反思，然后不断的去了解这个行业，或者说你要学会去抓住这个候选人他感兴趣的这样的一个地方。所以经过这样的一些积累的话呢，你可以渐渐的就是觉得说跟这些候选人，哪怕说他是资历非常深的，但是他可能也就什么慢慢的他也愿意说跟你去聊一些事情啦。
When would you say, okay, this researcher is ready to be in the market?
We don't really set a time, say, look, okay, you work for 2 years and you get promoted.
Oh, you don't have a time?
We have a time frame, but based on performance. And we will, for example, look at how many clients that they have, engagement that they have met, how many cases that they have actually completed along with the consultants. When we believe that, okay, they have met those criteria, then we will ask them to do a presentation to the leaders within that particular office or within the particular practice. And then in that presentation, they got to demonstrate to the leaders why they believe that they can actually become a consultant that can actually meet clients and generate revenue.
Let's talk about the senior now. Do you have any other methods to kind of like give support to your senior level consultants?
When we look at coaching and we look at training, our immediate thoughts is at the younger, more junior people, the millennials, right? The post-90s. But really, if I look at, myself, I've been working for over 30 years, even the senior people requires a lot of coaching and learning and development. If I look at my senior people, the people who are leading an office, leading a practice, or even leading a team, what they need to develop, especially within this industry, is not to look at just the what I can do for my client myself as an individual consultant. And this is one of the uniqueness of the consulting business. It tends to be a very individual business. As we are looking to develop more younger talent, I need to develop my leaders in order for them to be able to develop these people, right? So there's a lot of management development. There's a lot of negotiation. How do I really manage people? How do I motivate people? How do I really learn to sacrifice for my team? As an example, we are actually running what we call a Managing Director Academy, which we ran one in July last year, where a number of our most senior people from across the Berlin regions attended this academy. An academy was a 3-day program. It was a program of self-discovery. It was a program about what people thought about them. There was a lot of pre-survey, and at the end of the day, they took away some learning. What are the things that I need to do in order to become an effective leader?
According to iResearch, in recent years, high-end headhunting companies have extended to other HR services, such as leadership and talent consulting, showing the trend of accelerating the integration of industrial chains. In the transformation and innovation of various enterprises, headhunting companies also need to change. Facing a fierce market, David Chen is now thinking about how to prepare for the future of Berler Associates. As a CEO, one of your leadership responsibility is driving growth and innovation for the business. So are you taking any specific action, or are you going to take any specific action in the next couple of years?
We have been one of the top executive search firms in China. Okay, and then the emergence of a lot of local firms coming into the market. As a result, we have become, in the past few years, a lot more volume-driven business. So about scale, right? So for us, it's not purely about scale in numbers. It's about value. It's about focus, and it's about ultimately profitability. Right. So it's about efficiency in the way we service our client. In the past, we're very much a decentralized business. We're operating in different locations. Each location have its strategy. But going forward, we will be focusing much more on the industry across the network. And in some of the key areas that I mentioned, like Industry 4.0, in terms of fintech, we will start to build some specialization around that in order to leverage and tap into that market while the opportunity is there for us to tackle. And of course, another, I wouldn't say innovation, but a high priority for me is really shift our business model from very much the individual consultant to very much a team-based business. But importantly, I think in terms of the innovation doesn't just come from the CEO. Innovation actually comes from our employee. So what we've done recently, we actually established a forum or a mailbox that allows our employee to, if they want, to share ideas about how to improve our business practices, processes, or any ideas that they may have in order to engage our people better. And that information then is shared with a very small working group, and we'll assess that information and see what some of the things that we can actually prioritize in order to help our business. Innovation never stops. And an innovative idea today may be outdated tomorrow. So one of the key things for me is continue to innovate and continue to leverage my team to come up with different ideas. But I would say by in 2018, you will see a new version of Berler.
Well, we look forward to see it.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you. Thanks for coming to our show.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
据公安部交管局统计，目前我国新能源汽车已经达到
推动应用和质量
新
能源
汽车充电桩市场。
今天呢，我们要聊新能源汽车这个话题啊，什么样的车最好卖？什么价格区间的车最 popular？
您说这个问题呢，实际上很难回答。
当你的里程焦虑症也慢慢的达到了这个焦虑指数比较高的状态的时候，那该怎么办呢？